Welcome to the Friends of Fantasy Benefits Baseball Podcast. I'm Justin Mason, lead fantasy writer and analyst at friendsoffantasybenefits.com. Joining me this episode is Dave McDonald. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing wonderful. Almost rolling up on 3 a.m. here and ready to do this.
Yeah, there we go. Burning the midnight oil, quite literally, because it is about 8 minutes to midnight where I'm at, 3 a.m. where you're at. But it's never too late to talk baseball and to talk upcoming schedules, which is what we're going to do today. If you want, you can follow us on Twitter. Dave, you can follow at RunDMCD. Don't forget the D. Yeah. And you follow me on Twitter at Mason FWFB. Hey, give us a rate and review. It really helps us out. And if you do that, you'll get entered in to win a free t-shirt at the end of the month. If you do it on Spotify, make sure you send a screenshot of it to me, either email justinmasonfantasy@gmail.com or on Twitter at justinmasonfwfb. Let's just kind of jump right into our schedules. We'll, just like last week, we're going to go by the colors. I got the key for those colors in the show notes, so you've got that to kind of reference. Let's talk about your blue matchups. Who you got this week?
Yeah, so the blue matchups are going to be the elite matchups, and this is on rotosaurus.com. Again, I've been annoying Jake to put up the hitter schedule so y'all can follow along with me here. But so
get your shit together, Jake.
Yeah, get your shit together, please. The only one I've got for this week is Colorado. And it's because they've got 3 games at home in Colorado, and they've also got 3 games in Cincinnati. So, at home you've got, a little bit of a home run boost, but more the hit boost there. In Cincinnati, you've got the home run boost. So the only thing is a lot of their lineup, Colorado is much better against righties than lefties, and they get 4 lefties. So this week. So the big play is Randall Grichuk, who has, like a 147 WRC plus versus lefties. So he's like the big guy, but I wouldn't necessarily sit, some of your other key players, even like Ryan McMahon, Ezekiel Tovar, and then I would not sit Nolan Jones right now either. So Grichuk is the big play. Then I would say Nolan Jones would be after that. I'm assuming those 2 are probably not available in most leagues, depending on how shallow you are, though.
Yeah, just be careful with Tovar, though, because he was placed on the paternity list earlier today. So you probably missed the Cincinnati series and be back in the lineup for the Colorado series. So I doubt he's going to play very much in the Cincinnati series. But I agree with you. Otherwise, let's move on to some of your green matchups. Why don't we start with Arizona? Where we got here?
Yeah, Arizona gets 7 games this week. It's not that they don't have a lot of like really, really bad pitchers other than Jake Irvin. But they also don't really have any great pitchers either. It's like, Corbin Burns, who actually they lit up today. Colin Ria, Tahirin, Keaton Wynn, and Desclafani, all kind of mediocre to subpar pitchers. So 7 games of that. The only real good pitcher they face is Logan Webb. So get your pretty much all your Arizona guys. A lot of these guys are going to be owned. Obviously, Corbin Carroll, Lourdes Gurriel, Ketel Marte, Christian Walker. They're all going to be probably owned. But if they're not, get them in there. Some under the radar guys, though, you can get in there like Geraldo Perdomo, who's got a 145 WRC plus versus righties. Even if you really want to go deeper, you can go Pavin Smith. Is another guy who hits righties pretty well also.
Yeah, also they called up Alec Thomas. He went yard on Monday. So he's another guy that is a little bit interesting in that Arizona lineup. Let's talk about Cincinnati. We talked about Colorado playing Cincinnati. That means Cincinnati gets to play Colorado. It is in Cincinnati, but it's still a damn good place to hit.
Yeah. And so Cincinnati, unfortunately for me, because I own a lot of Jake Fraley and TJ Friedel, they really only play against righties. And I have a feeling, Justin, that this lineup is going to get more and more like San Francisco. They've got so many options. They might just start platooning guys, strictly versus righties versus lefties, other than their kind of core players. You know what I mean? So we already see guys like Friedel and Fraley. They've got 3 lefties this week. So even though they're facing Colorado pitching in Cincinnati, and I believe, by the way, I think Fraley hit a homer tonight or stole a base, one of the two. I can't remember. But he did something, I remember, and I was thinking, like, oh, crap, he's on my bench because they faced 2 lefties. Because he didn't start the game. He came in as a pinch hitter. Gomber, Freeland, and Noah Davis is returning for Colorado in the first half of the week, and then Schuster, Morton, and Strider in the second half of the week. So, with Cincinnati, versus lefties, you got Tyler Stevenson hits lefties well, Spencer Steer, McLean will be owned, obviously. If you want to go deeper, Kevin Newman, I don't know how much playing time he's going to have, though, is the question there. Friedel can hit lefties, but they're not giving him time versus them, so that sucks. But, so that's pretty much the situation in Cincinnati.
I mean, the only reason I think they might give Friedel a little bit of time versus lefties right now is because their lefty masher, which is Stuart Fairchild, is dealing with an injury right now.
I think he's back, isn't he?
Was he back in the lineup today?
I think he might have been back in the lineup today.
I can double check that real quick. He was. Though Friedel did come in to pitch hit for him at one point, so I don't know if he left with an injury again or if that was just a matchup-based thing. So, maybe not going to be as fruitful for Friedel. So definitely check your lineups, especially for those of you in daily moves leagues. What about Kansas City? They're at Detroit and then at Tampa Bay.
Yeah, Kansas City gets, Lorenzen, Boyd, and Yanni Chirinos are 3 prime targets to pick on. They also, however, get McClanahan, Eflin, and Glasnow. So, they get 3 shitty pitchers and then 3 real good pitchers. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, but it's 7 games in the week. So overall, get your Royals in there. Versus righties, Nick Prado kind of stands out a bit. He's cooled off lately. Michael Garcia is the guy who's heating up a bit lately as well, but they don't really. Olivares is also getting some more time, but this is also kind of a frustrating situation, especially with their outfielders trying to figure out who's going to be playing enough to be worthwhile there.
Yeah, I mean, with such a bad lineup at the end of the week, facing like 3 of the best pitchers in Tampa Bay, I'm also okay sitting a lot of these guys, especially, I mean, obviously if you got a Friday switch in NFBC, you got to sit for the end of the weekend. But before we move on to the Angels, I just remembered something about the Diamondbacks that I think is pertinent. They are playing 7 games this week, but in 3 different cities. They have a 3-game set in Milwaukee, which they started on Monday night. And then they play 1 game in Washington before flying to San Francisco. So a lot of travel time, probably going to be giving guys days off. Could even see some like moves in terms of demotions and things like that, just to get guys fresh. So just kind of keep on top of the roster, especially in your daily moves or daily lineups league, daily moves leagues. Because there might be a lot of switching around with that.
Yeah.
It also gave me the opportunity in my article on Fantasy Pros over the weekend to use the term snakes on a plane.
Well done.
I couldn't say snakes on a motherfucking plane because, I don't own Fantasy Pros, but I can do that here. So
you don't want to get fired from the job.
Yeah.
That's a good call.
What about the Angels? What's their schedule look like?
Yeah, so the Angels are a tough one because I gave them a green rating because they do play 3 games in Coors against Seabold, Chase Anderson, and Gomber. The problem is they only have 5 games, and then the other 2 games are at home against the Dodgers with Kershaw and Emmett Sheehan. So if you have daily moves or where you can make the Friday switch moves, leave your Angels on the bench for the first half of the week. If you have to put guys in, like in Fantrax, I played Taylor Ward this week because I'm not missing out on those 3 Coors games. I'm just not going to do that. Sheehan, I don't think is, fantastic, but I also don't feel great about that. But just getting 2 games, and obviously Kershaw is one of the worst matchups you can get. So they get 3 righties and 2 lefties. With the Angels, you kind of you obviously Otani, Trout, they're gone, but Drury, maybe Ward might still be out there somewhere. He shouldn't be, but if he is, he would be someone to get in there.
Yeah, I would definitely try to bench at the beginning of the week if you can. But those 3 games in Coors, I mean, those 3 pitchers are barely major league pitchers at this point, and now you get them in Coors. Got to take advantage of that as well.
Exactly.
Moving right along, the next team on the docket is the Miami Marlins. What do you got there?
Yeah, Miami gets 7 games this week, 6 against righties, including games against Luis Ortiz and Osvaldo Bido, assuming he gets another start for Pittsburgh. I don't know.
He should after tonight.
Yeah, I think so too. But then they also get Gausman and Keller, depending on how you feel about Barrios. I know my boy Jake is not a Barrios fan, but he's kind of Jekyll and Hyde. You never know.
No, they hit around Barrios pretty good because he was.
I know. I thought we were speaking as if that game didn't happen. Are we talking about today's game?
I mean, it had happened, so I mean, we might as well.
Yes, they did. They did beat Barrios around, and I've been telling people for a while, Miami is not a pushover against righties. They are pretty formidable. I mean, they've got a guy at the top of the lineup. You might have heard of him. His name is Luis Ariz. He's getting like 4 and 5 hits a game typically right now.
He's in 400. It's insane.
Unreal. He's unreal. He has like 1 homer and 1 steal, but I mean, it doesn't fucking matter if you're going to hit 400. So he gets all the hits and all the runs. And but the big play this week would be Jesus Sanchez, because he's the guy he's the righty masher. You get 5+ righties in a week, at least, 6+ righties, definitely get him in. 5 righties is a judgment call, depending on who your other options are. But yeah, Sanchez is a good play. Brian De La Cruz, if he's still out there, I would imagine Soler isn't out there anywhere, but those guys are all good plays this week.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Jesus Sanchez, if you can grab him off your wire, you definitely should. I know he's probably rostered in pretty much every keeper league, but in some of your shallow leagues, he might still be around. Let's move over to Minnesota, who has 7 games, Boston and Detroit.
Yeah, this looked better before Boston had the postponed game, because Paxton then moved from Sunday to Monday, which would have then lined up another righty for Minnesota, because a lot of their hitters are either exclusively play against righties or just don't hit lefties very well. So instead of being 6 righties, it went down to 5. So lowered their rating a little bit, but still pretty good. They get Lorenzen. They get a pen game from Boston, which will be probably some Kluber-Pivetta combination of some sort. Cutter Crawford's been getting lit up lately. Reese Olson is okay. And then, so you got Alex Kirilloff. You've got Edward Julian. Royce Lewis, who actually sat today. I can't believe how much they're sitting Royce Lewis. I don't know if they're still
I think he's hurt.
You think he's hurt?
Yeah.
Okay. It's been frustrating because I was excited about him, and he gets on rolls. Like, he had like 7 hits in a 2-game period, and then like they sat him, and it's just like they've sat him like 3 times in the last week. So I can't honestly tell you guys to play him because I don't know what the playing time is going to be. I sat him where I have him in Fantrax, and but yeah, Kirilloff and Julian are the 2 big plays for the righties. And actually, they both started today against Paxton, despite it being a lefty. I think this might be the first game Julian started all year against the lefty.
Yeah, and I think that is just further proof to me that Royce Lewis is hurt. Like, I just think that, and I don't know if they said anything yet, but I think I think he's still kind of banged up, and
that would make sense.
Taking it easy. I wouldn't even be surprised if he hits the IL at some point, just to protect him. He's had such a long injury history that they shouldn't mess with it. Let's move over to San Diego, playing my Giants right now. Lost to Yaz's 2 home runs.
Yeah, Yaz with the double donger today. Yeah, so San Diego gets 7 games. They really don't face any good pitching all week. Patrick Corbin is the crown jewel, but they got Gore, Josiah, Alex Wood, Manaea, Desclafani. Today they got Keaton Wynn. none of these guys are very good. The key thing is they get 4 lefties this week, which is a lot. And the 2 big plays this week are Ha-Sung Kim with a 124 WRC plus versus lefties, and Trent Grisham with a 180 WRC plus versus lefties. I actually picked up Trent Grisham, as we'll talk about later, in Glarf for $1 because I knew no one was going to be interested in him. But seeing the 4 lefties and thinking maybe I can get some steals out of him, and facing Mania, Wood, Corbin, and Gore, pretty solid matchups there.
Yeah, and Grisham's been hot as of late. He's one of those guys that kind of runs hot or runs cold, and you kind of got to take advantage of those streaks and then move on once he cools down. But right now he's hot, facing a lot of lefties. I think it's a really good pickup.
Yep.
Hey, my San Francisco Giants, the hottest team in baseball right now, 8 wins in a row. Who you grabbing from them?
Yeah, it's another righties week, man. 7 games, 6 versus righties. Anytime you see those righties, you get them all in. You know they are. It's Jock Peterson and Lamont Wade at the top, followed by J.D. Davis, who is still, as we talked about, I think it was maybe off air though.
Yeah, it was.
I asked you about J.D. Davis, and you said that you think that they're still easing him back. Like he's going to play regularly, but he's just not healthy yet. Correct?
Yeah, they interviewed him after his Grand Slam game against the Dodgers.
When he pinched it 2 days ago.
Yeah, and they asked him like, "Hey, are you like back ready to go? Like, are we going to see you in the lineup?" He goes, they're taking it really slow. They're being very careful. There's still some tenderness there. So I would expect him to maybe just pinch hit for a little while, try to find the spots. But I would assume by the end of the week, he's back in the lineup full time, and we might even see either David Villar or Casey Schmidt get optioned down.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would make a lot of sense. So yeah, Jock Peterson, Lamont Wade, Yastrzemski, who double-donged today, Tyro Estrada, Michael Conforto. These are all the guys you want to get in your lineups anytime the Giants get a bunch of righties. So whoever's available. And this is where, honestly, this is in Fantrax. This is where I go whenever I see the Giants have 5, 6, or 7 righties. I'm looking for Jock, Wade, and Yastrzemski, because those 3 are kind of borderline owns, because when they don't play righties, those guys are sits or drops. So you want to check and make sure that see if they're still out there.
Yeah, I mean, you get Zach Davies, you get Ryan Nelson, Seth Lugo, and then Yu Darvish, who's like the best pitcher on their schedule. He's been struggling. He's been giving up a lot of home runs, and the Giants are in home runs right now. So
well, I would say right now, Waka and Merrill Kelly are by far better than Yu Darvish right now. I mean, not as a pitcher, but not skills wise, but on the season they've been much better.
Yeah. I mean, I just think from a general skills perspective, I mean, Darvish, I think, is the superior pitcher. He's just not right currently.
Yeah, he's definitely not.
All right, next on the docket, we got the Tampa Bay Rays. They've got 6 games, 2 versus Baltimore, 4 versus Kansas City. Always want to take advantage of going against Kansas City pitching.
Oh, yeah. So 5 more righties here. You got it looks like they're going to bring back Jonathan Heasley from the minors to take over from Mike Myers. But either way, it's a great matchup. It doesn't matter which one of them it is. You got Greinke, you got Jordan Lyles, and then the lefty on the slate is Daniel Lynch. And then you've also got Bradish and Tyler Wells, who are honestly, Tyler Wells has been actually pretty good, but Bradish is hit or miss. He's not he's not a guy I'm picking on, but he's also not someone I'm fearing for my hitters. So, this is a tough lineup to kind of figure out who to play in any given week. Now, when they have 5 righties or 6 righties, Luke Raley is the play that stands out to me, because he plays versus all the righties, and then they sit him versus all the lefties. So I think he's a great play this week. Isak Paredes is a good play, but he's probably owned. Yandy's obviously owned. Josh Lowe, Randy Arozarena, obviously, yes, owned. So really, honestly, the one guy that stands out to me is Luke Raley here. Assuming Paredes is owned too.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing I will say is, as good as Tyler Wells has been, his one, real red flag is he gives up a lot of home runs. So, like,
True.
when that is like the one guy that you're really afraid of in the slate, and he's giving up home runs, that's a good slate to attack. So, yeah, if Paredes is available in your league, if Rayleigh is available in the league, now's the time to kind of go after them. Toronto has got 6 games, played one earlier tonight, but at Miami, and then home versus Oakland, which is always something you want to take advantage of.
Yeah. Hoeing kind of shut him down today a bit. But he got the start in place of the injured Edward Cabrera today, or yesterday, I guess. But then we've got Yuri Perez and Sandy Alcantara. But, Yuri Perez, not a great matchup, but Alcantara, I don't even know. Is that even a bad matchup right now?
It's so hard. As someone in the chat when we were talking earlier was talking about Alcantara and just like how much he's been struggling this year. I really still think it's a lot of bad luck, but it's also bad luck mixed with a really poor infield defense and the new or the new lack of shift rules. And so, like, while I do think things are going to get better for Alcantara, I don't think they're going to get back to what they were. And so he's not a guy that I'm necessarily running away from.
Yeah, exactly. And like you mentioned, they also get Oakland. So they get Kaprelian, they get Hogan Harris, and they get Luis Medina. So more options to pick on there. So unfortunately, most of Toronto's lineup is going to be owned. The only guy really who stands out to me is Kevin Kiermaier, who's actually leading their team with a 146 WRC plus versus righties, which is kind of crazy. But he did get hurt a couple weeks ago, or maybe like a week and a half ago or something like that. And then he came back. He hasn't really heated up yet, but I would play if you can get Kiermaier in versus those Oakland pitchers at the very least. I would make that play.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good sneaky play especially for those of you in deeper leagues. We have the Washington Nationals. They beat up on Jack Flaherty and still somehow lost today, but they've got 6 more games, and they are the other side of this weird Arizona schedule. Now, they're at home for most of the week. They get St. Louis for 3, then Arizona for that 1, and then I think they're home versus San Diego. You have at San Diego. I'm going to double check that.
I copied and pasted this from something that already had the schedule out, so I didn't manually put that in, so hopefully it's right.
I'm double checking as we speak. Depends on how Fangraphs like to load. But go ahead and start talking.
Yeah, so we've got Flaherty, we've got Tommy Henry, a couple of good guys to pick on. We do have Musgrove and Waka on the slate, and Jordan Montgomery is not bad. So, you've got some solid pitching in there, but nothing to be afraid of, and you got 7 games. So I still like this slate for Washington. They get 5 righties. The main guys to take advantage of versus righties, really the big one is Heimer Candelaria with the 124 WRC plus versus righties. That guy just, he doesn't have a lot of power and he doesn't run, but man, the guy just hits and he gets he really racks up the counting stats.
It was correct. They are at San Diego at the end.
Okay. That's good. I would have been concerned if it wasn't. Actually, ironically, Justin, it's your employer that Fantasy Pros puts out there probable starters. And now I hate to say this, I hate to disparage anybody, but they're putrid. So I make my own, and I just I just paste my stuff over theirs. But they have a nice setup where I can just kind of put in an Excel file and then just change stuff. So it's that would have been your employer who got that one wrong if they did. But
I'm employed by everyone, so you can't.
I know. That's true. That is true. But yeah, they're the Nationals are much better against lefties. Typically, there's a lot more plays. It's a lot more exciting when they get some lefties on the slate. But Joey Meneses is another guy who can hit righties decently. But Candelario is really the main target here. And by the way, in the chat, THP Knobs says that Emmett Sheehan is getting the Astros, not the Angels. And he said Robert said he's getting extra rest between starts to control his innings, and he would assume Michael Grove is going to come back up for that start that I was talking about versus the Angels. So I guess that means that Emmett Sheehan is not pitching this week. Is that what he's saying? Because they don't face the Astros this week.
Yeah, no, they face the Astros at the end of the week.
Oh, they are.
Yeah, the Dodgers face the Astros at the end of the week.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah, I guess I'll have to look into that some more. I missed that, so thank you for the information, and I'll have to update my sheets.
Moving on into our orange matchups, we've got the Chicago Cubs at Pittsburgh for 3, at St. Louis for 2. So it's a 5-game week with the weird 2 days off in a row thing again. I don't understand. I think the Cardinals, who they're facing at the end of the week, this is the second time I've seen them go through this year. What is this?
Well, so this is because they're playing in London, right?
Oh, that makes sense. Okay.
So I think it's just the extra for traveling, and all that.
Oh, okay.
That's why they're off Thursday and Friday, because it's just Chicago Cubs and St. Louis, and they're playing in London. To my knowledge, the London park doesn't play anything like the Mexico park, where it was like Coors on steroids.
Yeah, well, that's because Mexico City's so is altitude
elevated.
Yeah.
So I don't know anything about how this London stadium plays. So I'm sure someone on some podcast has talked about it. Something to look into. But honestly, so the reason I have this Cubs matchup, usually when there's a 5-game slate and there's a bunch of 7-game slates on there, I usually have it rated as a red. But look at who the Cubs get this week. They get Osvaldo Bido, Oviedo, Rich Hill, Wainwright, and Flaherty. Like, yes, they're only getting 5 games, but those are all good matchups for them. So honestly, if you have some Cubs who, can hit righties decently, I'm not necessarily sitting them. Like, I still played Nico Horner in Fantrax, honestly, because I figured 5 games of him versus 6 games of someone who's not as good as him. I'd rather take Nico there. Guys like Happ, Suzuki, even Talkman, Morel, I think they're all still in play.
Yeah, I completely agree, especially because we just never know how guys are going to travel, and I'm more worried about the pitchers in that regard because
that's a good point.
Pitchers are such creatures of habit, and you're having to travel, 8 hours, from the Midwest over to London. So, and then, having to pitch at a time that you're probably not used to pitching. So yeah, I would be very surprised if it's a low scoring affair, especially if those pitchers are pitching.
By the way, did you see this new recent comment here? He says from Rupert Henley, Yankees, Red Sox. He said shared 50 runs over 2 games. I'm assuming it's supposed to be scored in London Stadium in 2019. So something to look into. I have no idea how that stadium plays. Maybe it does play as a heavy hitter's park.
Or maybe a like I said, pitchers tend to struggle when they're thrown out. I mean, remember how Lucas Giolito would get absolutely crushed if he ever had a morning
game before 1 p.m.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, I don't like waking up early.
Though Rupert Henley is Rupert from Scotland, so
okay. I mean, hey, the guy. I figured he knows. Some
stuff. We have an inside source clearly from the British Isles. So
there you go. It's good to have people on the inside,
right? Next set of matchups, you got in the orange is Houston. And Houston has got 6 games: 3 versus the Mets, 3 versus the Dodgers.
Yeah, so it looks worse than it is, I think, because like Scherzer, so here's their slate: Scherzer, Verlander, Miguel, Bobby Miller, Gonsolin, and Kershaw. Obviously not ideal, but it sounds worse than it is. I still think it's bad. That's why it's an orange. But Kershaw obviously is a bad matchup. Scherzer and Verlander haven't been great though. Miguel's been straight bad. Bobby Miller has been very good so far, but got blown up last time. Same with Gonsolin, but Gonsolin is also pitching very much over his head. Like Gonsolin, I don't think is honestly a very good pitcher. So like while this is still mostly in a void for me, like I'm not streaming guys, Astros hitters for this week. I'm also not sitting, I'm not sitting Altuve. I'm not sitting, anybody, Tucker. your main hitters there. Yener Diaz hit a home run. I would have started him as well.
Yeah. It's like you said, it's kind of a weird setup because, like you said, Scherzer and Verlander have not been. Scherzer and Verlander, Gonsolin, I agree. I don't think he's a bad pitcher necessarily, but I definitely think he's been pitching over his head. Yeah. And the regression we saw in that Cincinnati game is probably going to continue some. McGill has been awful, but has been great in 2 of his last 3 starts. Bobby Miller, he had been fantastic before that Giant start. Kershaw has been, Kershaw. So yeah, I think I would probably sit my fringy guys and start my good guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Next on the docket is the Brewers. What do you got there?
Yeah, the Brewers also get a pretty tough slate. They get Merrill Kelly, Zach Gallen, Shane Bieber, and then they also get Bybee and Savali, who have not been great lately, but I still think they're not great matchups for most hitters. And then they get Ryan Nelson. That's like the one reprieve in this setup here. So, 6 righties. So anybody who mashes righties like Rowdy Tellez, you just got to start him and pray that he does something because, God, he's been so bad for so long. But just hoping he does something. Obviously, you're still starting Christian Yelich in this situation. He's a must start at this point. Owen Miller, I think, is a borderline start. He's a guy who hits righties really well, 122 WRC plus versus righties, but he's kind of been struggling lately. And we've seen these big swings from him where he has these huge hot streaks and then he cools off. So it's going to be interesting to see how he responds from that.
Yeah, I'd probably sit Miller.
I think I would too.
Yeah, so all right, then finished, or no, we got 2 more in the orange matchup. Oakland orange matchup. That feels ambitious.
What do you mean?
I mean, usually they're a red match.
Oh,
because they suck.
Well, this is simply rating their schedule, not their skill of hitters. So they get Savali. I have them projecting to get Gavin Williams because I think he comes up this week. Logan Allen, Bassett, Barrios, and Kikuchi. So it's kind of like there's no necessarily aces here. I mean, Gavin Williams could be at some point, but this would be his first start if he does come up. There's no aces here, but there are also no great matchups either. So overall, I just think it's an avoid I don't know how many Oakland players you're starting anyways, but you're probably just avoiding all of them this week.
Yeah, if you're starting too many Oakland players, you're probably not winning your league. So leave it at that. And then St. Louis, they played today against the Nationals, but and I've lost them on the sheet, so you'll have to tell me who else are going up against. There we go. 3 versus the Nationals. Oh, and then they're the ones in London
yes.
for those games, which now sounds scarier thanks to our friend Rupert from Scotland.
Yeah, and so I think if you have daily changes or midweek changes, you might want to get your Cards and your Cubs in, even though it's just 2 games in the weekend. If it plays that offense heavy, or like you said, if the pitchers are having a tough time adjusting, then it might be worth playing them even for a 2-game slate. Again, this is orange because they don't face great pitchers this week. It's Josiah Gray, who they lit up yesterday. You've got Mackenzie Gore, Trevor Williams is terrible, Tyon has been terrible, and then you've got Steele, who is the one pitcher on the slate who's actually solid. So not too scary, but it's just that they only get 5 games. So I think you're still playing your Goldschmidt and Jordan Walker, probably Nolan Arenado, obviously, and then like your fringe guys, I think you can put in. If you definitely for the first half of the week against Washington, I put in, Paul DeYoung, and right now you got to sit Gorman because he is just cold as ice right now.
Yeah. We kind of knew that Gorman was going to cool off though.
Yeah. His profile, he another power guy who has a lot of swing and miss, those guys are going to be streaky.
The one thing I will even kind of mention, if you do want to, take a gamble on, some of these Cardinals guys is, while Justin Steele is a pretty good pitcher, like he didn't go very deep into the game in his first game back. Like I think the Cubs are gonna be really careful with him, especially traveling that far. I would expect him to probably be limited to like 80, maybe 90 pitches max. So maybe they can get to the Cubs bullpen if they can't get to Steele.
That makes sense. Yeah, I would agree.
So let's move into our red matchups. Let's talk about Baltimore.
Yeah, Baltimore is. I remember talking about this on the show last week, and not much has changed. So it's 5 games against 5 really good pitchers. So they get Glasnow, Taj Bradley, Logan Gilbert, Bryce Miller, and then George Kirby. So sit all of your Orioles this week, pretty much, unless you really are, crunched for on your roster, because even and then like Gunnar Henderson, who's a guy who I was like, he's been insane lately, but he was sick. He might be back Tuesday. I don't know. I still sat him this week.
I think that's fair. There are a couple leagues where I didn't really have other good options because I've got too many IL guys. So, I rolled with Santander in a couple leagues. But if you can, try to get them out of your lineups. What about the Dodgers?
Yeah, the Dodgers also have 5 games, and again, versus some pretty good pitching. Reed Detmers, Shohei Ohtani, and Hunter Brown are the 3, really good pitchers there. Well, 2 really good pitchers. Detmers is hit or miss, but he's been really good the last 2 times out. JP France has been solid, and then the one target there is Ronald Blanco that you can attack. But 5 games with those starters. I'm sitting my elite Dodgers. Obviously you're still going to play Freeman, play Betts, JD Martinez, Will Smith, but other than that, I'm sitting everyone else.
You and I talked about prior to the start of the show, the Mets having just an awful week in terms of their starting pitchers.
Yep. Yeah, they get 3 righties, 3 lefties. They get Framber, they get Hunter Brown, they get Christian Javier, they get Zach Wheeler, they get Ranger Suarez. The only reprieve there is Christopher Sanchez, the rookie for the Phillies, assuming he gets that start again. But he looked pretty good when he first came up, so I assume he will. So, yeah, it's just again, you're starting your studs for the Mets, but other than that, sit everybody else.
Yeah. And then let's finish out with the New York Yankees, who have 6 games, 3 versus Seattle, and 3 versus Texas, all decent to good starters.
Yeah, I mean, the Yankees lineup looks almost unrecognizable right now. Like it's pretty putrid. And even though this is a 6-game series, I still give them a red rating because it's more of the same. Like really good pitching. They get George Kirby, Luis Castillo, Brian Wu looks really good. They get John Gray. Heaney's not bad. Dane Dunning has pitched well. I don't think he's that good, but he's the only guy I would really attack this week with the Yankees. So I'm really I'm sitting my Yankees where I can outside of, I guess, I don't even know, Gleyber Torres maybe and Giancarlo Stanton, I guess. That's about it.
I mean, I even dropped DJ LeMahieu in my Tout Wars. Like I just couldn't do it anymore. All right, let's talk about some streamers. Smiley and Hendricks going up against the Pittsburgh Pirates. What are you thinking there?
Yeah, and I mean, Smiley already pitched against the Pirates. He didn't give up many hits, but he walked everybody. I don't know what happened there. Like Smiley, usually pretty good control guy, so I'm not sure why, but he didn't give up any runs, and he got the win. The whip wasn't phenomenal, but it was still a good outing. And then Kyle Hendricks. I know that you're afraid of him, and for good reason. Yeah, and there's low upside because he doesn't strike guys out. But I still feel confident that he'll be able to get by Pittsburgh without giving up, more than a run or 2.
I was just checking Smiley's velocity, and it's actually up. So maybe just
overthrowing, maybe.
Yeah, probably overthrown a little bit. All right, then next guy on the docket, Cutter Crawford's got a 2-step Minnesota and versus the Chicago White Sox.
Yeah, this one's tough because I faced this decision in a couple of my leagues, and I ended up sitting him. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's Minnesota and it's Chicago White Sox. It doesn't get a whole lot better than that in terms of matchups, but I just don't have the confidence that he's going to go even 5 innings to get the win. He's got good stuff. Like, I'm not giving up on Cutter Crawford yet, but I think he's still in the process of stretching out. So I wish this was like 2 weeks down the line from now. I would feel a lot better.
I completely agree. I like him a lot, and I like him long term, and he's a guy that I've got stashed in a league or two, but I just can't start him if I don't feel confident that he can go 5. So, I'm just not quite there yet. Maybe he goes 5 in one of these outings, and I feel better about it next week. But
yeah, exactly.
For right now, I can't. Savali's got a pretty sweet 2-step versus Oakland and Milwaukee.
Yeah, and you skipped over Whitlock there, but basically he goes against Minnesota. Garrett Whitlock honestly should be universally owned. I think he's probably a top 40 pitcher right now and probably for the rest of the way. So if Garrett Whitlock's available anywhere, I'd pick him up.
I absolutely agree. Said earlier on the Super and the Bust podcast that Whitlock is going to be the guy at the end of the summer that helps people win leagues.
I agree. And then, as you mentioned before, Savali with a nice Oakland-Milwaukee 2-step. He came back recently. He hasn't looked great yet, but the curve is still there. And he's got good command and control where he should be able to get by Oakland and Milwaukee and give you some pretty good ratios, I think, and probably at least one win.
I agree. Next on the list, Gavin Williams versus Oakland.
Yeah.
If he gets a start.
Yeah. If Gavin Williams gets called up and if he starts, it'll be Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, and it would be versus Oakland. And this is another reason why I think he's going to get called up, because I think that they'd want to give him a nice, easy matchup to start off with. So doesn't get any easier than Oakland at home. So I don't know. It just seems like it makes too much sense to not happen for me personally. And so if Gavin Williams gets called up, I'm starting him versus pretty much anybody. So Oakland is a no-brainer.
Absolutely. If you can do midweek pickups, you need to make sure that Gavin Williams is rostered on your team if he's still available. So I would drop a considerable amount of fab in order to get him. All right. Reese Olson, he pitched earlier tonight versus Kansas City. Was fine. Like nothing special or anything. But he gets Minnesota later in the week.
Yeah, I mean, he went 6 innings. He gave up 3 earned runs. He did give up 2 homers, but 6 hits, 1 walk, so slightly above 1 WHIP that's good. And then 8 Ks too. And he didn't get the win because they didn't score enough while he was in the game. But I like Reese Olson. I think he's a streamer who. I mean, the thing I don't like about him is that he pitches for Detroit. So you're not going to get a lot of wins out of him. But if you need like a solid pitcher and it's in a streamable matchup, I like him.
I agree. Reed Detmers, you and I were discussing this prior to hitting record because you had a real kind of dilemma whether or not to start Reed Detmers. What are you going to do?
Yeah. I have some leagues where I'm sitting him and some leagues where I'm starting him. So he's going to start against the Dodgers tomorrow. Or I guess today, depending on when you listen to this, he's starting on Tuesday. So he's starting on Tuesday versus the Dodgers. The Dodgers are Jekyll and Hyde in their lineup. The top of the lineup is phenomenal. Like, you got Betts, Freeman, JD Martinez, Will Smith. The bottom half of the lineup is putrid. So Detmers has looked really good 2 starts in a row, including versus Texas, which is either the best offense or the second best offense in baseball. I think it's the best, but I think you can make a case for Tampa there. Either way, he looked impressive. And I think Detmers is the kind of guy who, once he figures it out and it all clicks, it doesn't matter. You're going to start him versus everybody. So you're not going to sit him versus anybody. And, if he's there, it's a start. But it just kind of depends on what your risk tolerance is and how your ratios are or what's important to you. It's also going to be tough for him to get a win going against Kershaw. So we'll see. I started him some places. I sat him some places, but he has to at least be a consideration for you.
Yeah, this is a really good example of a guy that I was like not in on during draft season that I have picked up off of the waiver wire because I think he's better than most players on your waiver wire. So,
What kind of what leagues are we talking about that you picked up Reed Detmers on the waiver wire?
and 12 teamers.
Okay.
So, I don't know if I don't think I've got him any 15 teamers. I don't think I've seen him hit the wire there, but in 12 teamers, he's hit the wire a few times. So, and I think you should pick him up because I think he's got more talent than he's shown so far, or at least the surface numbers have shown so far. And he's got a really powerful offense behind him in Los Angeles. So, I do like Detmers. I don't know that I would start him here, and I told you I probably would.
Yeah.
I wouldn't start him here.
It's a tough call. We'll see what happens tomorrow.
Hoeing, he started tonight, right?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah,
so
and he what?
I was going to say, should we skip him then, or?
Well, I was just going to mention he was a guy who I literally didn't put any consideration into. I was like, oh, Brian Hoeing, like he sucks. And then like I hadn't seen, now granted, small sample size warning. But in 4 appearances in the minors, he had a .98 whip with a 2 ERA, and he had a 10.4 K per 9 with a 1 walk per 9. Now, I definitely think that obviously those numbers regress. You know, when he pitched in the majors earlier, he didn't have those kind of numbers, but he went 4 scoreless on Monday night, 5 Ks, no walks, 3 hits. Granted, he didn't go 5 innings, but he looked pretty damn good. So I think he's someone I have to keep an eye on because, you know, sometimes guys make adjustments, and I don't know. I look forward to reading Nick's SP Roundup article on Hoeing later because he could end up being someone that ends up being a sneaky pickup at some point.
Yeah. I haven't read Nick's article yet. I don't even know if it's out yet, but I'm sure it is at this point.
It generally comes out around 3:30, 4:30 a.m., somewhere in that time frame.
So it should be out soon. Definitely go read that. That's one of my must reads every day.
Yes.
Wade Miley versus Cleveland. I actually really like this streaming matchup because Cleveland hasn't been great offensively, and Miley has been quietly pretty decent.
Yeah. Marcus always, so every year my friend Marcus picks up Wade Miley, like without like every fucking year he goes after Wade Miley. It's just like he calls him the shiniest turd, you know, he's the guy who he's not great, but man, like he comes through with just decent starts a lot. Now Cleveland, I have to admit, Cleveland has been, their offense is starting to come alive. But he's that kind of guy that gives them problems. Those crafty veteran lefties, and that's what Wade Miley is. And if I were a betting man, I would bet that he has a good start against Cleveland. Unfortunately, this week.
What about we've got Kenta Maeda, who should be joining the rotation at the end of the week, and then Varland, who we discussed on yesterday's pod as a person I hate with a passion.
Yes. Yeah, so Varland's fresh off of getting rocked by Detroit, gets them again this week, assuming he stays. So according to my schedule, I believe they're going to go to a temporary 6-man rotation. So this is assuming that Maeda and Varland both start this week against Detroit. That is in no way a certainty. That's just what I'm projecting. Varland could get sent down. They have said that they're going to bring Maeda up for the weekend series, so he is definitely getting the Tigers. But it's his first start back, and you know he's not super built up. I think Maeda would be lucky to go 5 innings. So these are both kind of, and you know Varland's coming off of 3 rough starts. I still believe in the talent there, and I still think Detroit sucks. So I'm willing to roll the dice on Varland if I don't have a better option, just because I don't know for a fact that he's not going to get sent down. So these two are kind of more desperation plays, like if you really needed someone to throw into a lineup, but I would prefer other options, but they have to be considered.
All right. I'm not starting either of them, but yeah. If I had to start one over the other, I'm definitely starting Varland over Maeda.
Okay.
Just because I don't trust guy first start back. It's been off a while, and I
in general always avoid those two. So yeah.
Yeah. Herman and Vasquez versus Seattle.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's been confirmed, but I through my research, I think that it's going to be Randy Vasquez filling the hole in the Yankees rotation that they're waiting for Rodon to come back into. Randy Vasquez has been solid for them, honestly, and as discussed on our prior pod, Seattle not so good. Same thing with Herman. Herman's been solid, and Seattle's not very good. So those two should face Seattle on Wednesday and Thursday, and assuming that they do, I think they're both solid matchups there as streamers.
What about moving over to the Oakland A's, who, like we said, are not a very good team, but Blackburn's coming off, I think, his best outing
ever,
at least of the year, maybe ever. I was about to say. I think you can make the argument probably his best outing of his career. And JP Sears, who's quietly been really, really good in spite of the fact that Oakland just cannot give him run support. Are these guys you would stream? Versus Cleveland? Yeah,
again, even though I'll be honest with you, I don't trust Blackburn for shit. I
don't either.
I think he's a bad pitcher. I just had to put this on there because right now in 4 starts, he's got a 10 K per 9 and a 2.6 walk per 9. Now he's always been pretty good control wise, so that tracks. But the strikeouts kind of coming out of nowhere here, and he only has a 10.9% swing strike rate. So I'm pretty sure that that's just, a small sample, whatever. But if you're desperate and you need someone to start, the Guardians are not the worst streaming matchup. But I will say I could easily see them just pummeling Blackburn. And this isn't what I'd want. I wouldn't want this. This is if you're in a really, really deep league. It's a super sneaky play that you can pick him up for free and play him. I have a lot more confidence in JP Sears, who I low-key think is actually a pretty decent starting pitcher.
I agree.
He really limits walks, sub 2 walk per 9, 1.89 walks per 9. He's got an 11.8% swing strike rate, despite only an 8.5 K per 9. I think he's going to have more Ks coming to him. I just think he's got a 1.06 whip too. The only problem with JP Sears is that he plays for Oakland. That's really what it comes down to. So that sucks, but he's still a guy who I'm streaming where I need ratios because I think he's a good player.
I think you absolutely nailed it on Sears and Blackburn, to be quite honest. I really like Sears a lot, and I think Blackburn is garbage.
Yep.
So yeah. All right. Oviedo's got Chicago and then Miami.
Yeah, so I kind of mentioned earlier that Miami is not exactly a pushover, but I'm not necessarily avoiding them, especially if it comes with a 2-step that includes the Cubs. The Cubs have just been so bad versus righties lately. And I like Johan Oviedo. I think he's still putting it together as a pitcher. I don't think he's completely polished yet, but he has some legit skills. And I definitely rolled him in some 12-teamers in Fantrax for this 2-step, as well as some 15s. So I just think it's the right matchups for him, and I think he'll have a solid 2-start.
I said this on Friday when I did the 2-start episode on the Sleeper in the Bus with Paul. Oviedo is one of my favorite streaming 2-start guys this week, and I picked him up in a number of leagues where I didn't already have him. I already had him in a bunch of 15-team leagues. He is in every single one of my lineups that I have him in. So hopefully that doesn't mean he gets destroyed. All right. What about Wu going against the Yankees?
Yeah, Brian Wu came up and just got dismantled by Texas, but the thing is, it's Texas, and they're ridiculous. Why Seattle brought him up for that matchup, I don't know. I mean, I guess they needed someone that day, but I would have gone with a pen game or something because that's just brutal to put a rookie through. But, right now through 3 starts, he's got a 2.3 Sierra, 14.6 K per 9, and a 1.46 walk per 9. Now, again, a lot of this will regress, but I think that there's a legit good pitcher here. In AA, 2 ERA, 0.9 whip. He really limits the walks and he gets strikeouts. So that's really what we're looking for. He's got, according to Nick, he's got an elite fastball. I think it's just whether the secondaries develop will that'll be what if he'll be an elite starter or not. But Brian Wu should be owned pretty much everywhere, I think, right now. In my Yahoo leagues, I'm planning on picking him up, and they're very shallow leagues. So I'm planning on picking him up for his Thursday start this week against the Yankees. So, I mean, the Yankees are just bad right now. So I'll play other people versus them, but especially Wu.
Yeah, I mean, I would feel a lot better about this if this wasn't in New York. If it was in Seattle, I think it would be a pretty easy stream. It's a lot riskier, especially a guy who has trouble sometimes with command and control, like Brian Wu does. I think
what do you mean by that? Because I mean, obviously the control is good. He doesn't walk people.
I worry about his. Yeah. Sorry, I worry about his ability to place pitches.
Okay.
And in that park, that can be really, really dangerous. So, I don't know.
But who's going to take advantage? Because I mean, Jake Bowers or Higashoka, like who the fuck is even playing for them right now?
Yeah, I know that's the hard part.
I mean,
I guess you got to roll with it, but it just
I definitely think you should play Wu this week.
All right. Let's move on into next week and kind of look ahead a little bit. Let's start with your blue matchups. You got Colorado.
Yep, Colorado gets 6 games all at home, including some real nice ones versus some Detroit pitchers. So they get Lorenzen, I have Matt Manning and Matthew Boyd. Now, honestly, Detroit's the one team that I had a real difficult time projecting for next week because I think one or both of Matt Manning and Skubal might come back next week. But it's possible that neither of them does. And then I don't know who they use as their 5th starter. So I'm just guessing here. Either way, it's not going to be anybody that you don't want to go up against. So, it's going to be good matchups for the Rockies. And then they also get the Dodgers. I guess I have to move Emmett Sheehan around. So I don't know who's going to be pitching there. I think Bobby Miller and Gonsolin I have matched up there. Gonsolin will probably get pummeled, honestly, in Coors. But basically, get your Colorado Rockies in, and this will be a big Nolan Jones week. I'd think he's been mashing righties. But even guys like Grichuk, Ryan McMahon is another guy you'll want to get in,
Mm-hmm.
and Elias Diaz, the catcher, you'll definitely want to get him in as well. So. Get all those guys in. You can leave Grichuk in as well. Get your Rockies in.
Yep. Next one on the list is Detroit Tigers. They got 7 games. They're at Texas and then at Colorado.
Yeah. So the other one of the teams going to Colorado, Detroit, they get Chase Anderson, Gomber, and Freeland from Colorado. And then from Texas, they see Martin Perez and Dane Dunning. The only tough matchups they get are Eovaldi and John Gray. So 5 good matchups in a 7-game series, pretty damn good. They do get 3 lefties though, so
yeah,
you'll have to watch that because some of the guys like Carpenter and McKinstry pretty much just play versus righties and they mash them. They don't really play versus lefties, so that's the problem. I think the main guy to play, the guy who mashes lefties and the guy who's been coming on lately is Spencer Torkelson. I think he's a kind of maybe a little bit of an under the radar play right now in 12s. I think he's probably owned in 15s everywhere, but I think you can pick him up and play him. I think he's an elite play next week.
I literally just wrote him up earlier today for Fantasy Pros, so that hopefully will be coming out either on Tuesday or Wednesday morning. So I wrote him up as a buy low kind of candidate, a guy who has been better as of late and is quietly kind of mashing a little bit. So, and you add in that easy schedule next week, and I think he's a good buy low guy right now.
Good timing.
Yep, perfect timing. What about the Dodgers?
Whew, man, this is the week you've been waiting for. If you own Freeman, Betts, JD Martinez, or Will Smith, man, it's jackpot week because you get 3 in Colorado versus Freeland, Noah Davis, and Siebold, and then 3 in KC versus Lyles, Lynch, and Singer. I don't know if you can get much better than this. I mean, I guess if it were 7 games and another game in Colorado, that'd be perfect, but pretty damn good. Unfortunately, those guys are going to be owned. I don't really know who to tell you to pick up because everybody else is just kind of mixing and matching in that lineup. And I don't even know really who would even be playing for the Dodgers. Like where you still have Outman, I think you play him, but I mean, I just don't know how many games you're going to get. Like Miguel Vargas has been struggling, but he still plays most days. Man, I mean, David Peralta plays versus righties. Michael Busch.
Yeah, I think Busch might be the answer.
Maybe you just throw Busch in there and say, "Hey, let's hope he has a nice week here," because I mean, this could be a big week for him. So, yeah, I don't know. It's I don't have a ton of confidence in that, but I mean, this is if there's ever a week to say, "Hey, let's take a shot on someone." This is it.
Yeah, I agree. And then the last blue matchup is the White Sox, and the White Sox have the Angels, and then at Oakland.
Yeah, so this is the blue matchup that doesn't include Coors, but I was debating between green or blue for this, but I went for blue because it's 7 games and because they get such bad pitching. Jaime Barria, Patrick Sandoval, Hogan Harris, Luis Medina, and if we're correct about Paul Blackburn, then he's the 5th there. So really, the only good pitching they get is Ohtani and Detmers. So pretty damn good, and it's 4 righties and 3 lefties. So your guys who are the lefty mashers, Luis Robert is the big one. Jake Berger, if he's available, we talked about him on yesterday's podcast.
Mm-hmm.
He's a big play here. Eloy Jimenez, if he's probably not available, but if you have him, you get him in. Tim Anderson, he should be back and healthy at some point this week. So hopefully he's ready for this week because this could be maybe a little bit of a get right spot for him. He's historically mashed lefties pretty well. So that's pretty much it though. Like if Berger's available, pick him up. Get Tim Anderson back in the lineup for this week, and that's about it.
All right. Let's move on to our green matchups and start out with your Cleveland Guardians, who have 6 games next week at Kansas City and then at the Chicago Cubs.
Yeah, Cleveland gets the Royals and the Cubs. So like you said, they get Singer, they get Heasley, they get Greinke, and they get Tyon. And then the best pitchers they face in the slate are Steele and Smiley. Smiley, who's been getting beat up lately, and Steele, who you mentioned has a home run issue. So pretty good matchup for Cleveland. And this is 4 righties, 2 lefties. So pretty much just get Stephen Kwan in there, get Josh Naylor, definitely get Naylor in. Obviously, you're not benching Jose Ramirez. Also could be, I think it's a good enough week for Will Brennan as well. He hits righties much better than lefties, but I still think that the 2 lefties that he faces, Smiley and Steele, are not exactly overpowering. So I think he should be able to handle them.
You said that I said that Steele has a home run issue. I think you meant that he hadn't gone deep into games.
Oh, that was the one.
Yeah. Steele does not have a home run issue.
Okay, my bad.
But he did not go back deep into the game with coming back from the IL, and I think the Cubs will be conservative with him.
Yeah. So either way, I think you're going to probably see a lot of the Cubs bullpen, which is not good for the Cubs.
Yes. Next team on the docket are the Milwaukee Brewers, and Milwaukee has 7 games, 4 versus the Mets, and then 4 versus the Pirates. 3 versus the Pirates.
Yes. And 6 righties, 1 lefty here. They get guys to target include McGill, Carrasco, who's been low-key real bad, Osvaldo Bido, and Rich Hill. And then the other guys are nothing special either. Verlander, who, as we've talked about, has not been Verlander. Kodai Senga, who I feel like he's solid overall, but like he'll have a lot. He's had a lot of matchups where he just gets blown up. I don't know if he just doesn't have it, and so you never know when you're going to get those matchups from him. And then Oviedo, who we both like, but he's not exactly an ace. So pretty good matchups for the Brewers here, and especially for their righty mashers. So this is going to be a good time again to get Rowdy Tellez and Owen Miller in, and obviously Yelich, you're gonna keep him in. It'll be a good week for him. Not. I think I would still play Joey Weimer, but he's the kind of guy who really mashes lefties and struggles against righties. He's got a 57 WRC plus versus righties, and he hits ninth versus them. But I think in a 7-game slate with as bad as pitching as there is, I think I would probably play him where I didn't have a much better option.
Yeah, I think it really depends on your other options and whether or not your batting average can take a hit, because Weimer is like one of those guys like that. Like he's got power, he's got speed, but man, he can really strike out a lot. So it depends on what stat you're chasing or what stat you're protecting at this point.
Yes.
The New York Mets have a nice little schedule as well, and they are going up. They've got 7 games as well. Those 4 games against the Brewers and 3 games against my Giants.
Yeah, the Mets have had a real rough schedule pretty much for the last month since I've been tracking this. Maybe 2 months. I don't even know. It's been a long time since I've seen a Mets schedule and given it a good rating. So this is the first time in a while. A lot of these guys aren't terrible pitchers, but they're also not good pitchers. You got Colin Ria, Tahiran, you got Miley, Freddie Peralta, Alex Cobb, Desclafani, and Minaya. So given that it's 5 righties on the docket, you can particularly looking at, Nimmo's going to be owned in most places, but Tommy Pham actually is hitting righties very well this year. 117 WRC plus. Jeff McNeil is a guy who can hit righties pretty well. And I'm hoping maybe they bring up by this point, maybe they'll have Ronnie Mauricio up, because this would be a very nice week for him to get involved. Francisco Alvarez also, he's a huge righty masher, 175 WRC plus versus righty. So if you've got him, this will be a fun week for you.
I love how you can properly pronounce Desclafani and Minaya, but you pronounce Colin Ray wrong every time and Julio Ron wrong every time.
Because I never hear those. Like, I hear the other ones.
Yeah, not watching a lot of Brewers games, are we?
No, I really, don't.
So, like, Ray of Sunshine, like Tehran, like, the capital of Iran,
Tehran, okay.
Yeah, there you go. All right. But I agree with you. I like all those calls. Next one, New York Yankees getting 6 games, 3 at Oakland, 3 at St. Louis. So 2 of the worst teams in baseball, apparently, weirdly enough.
Yeah. So the Yankees, it's been a while for them too, since I've seen them with a good rating. So they get Oakland, they get Blackburn, they get Kaprelian, and then they get Wainwright and Flaherty from St. Louis. And then the other 2 pitchers they get are Sears and Montgomery. So while they're both solid pitchers, there's no real avoids there. So it's a good week for the Yankees. I just don't know who to recommend you to play, because there's just like that lineup is just so bad. And like Bowers only plays versus righties, I believe. Mm-hmm. So I can't really recommend him because they only get 4 righties. There's just not really any plays here that stand out to me right now.
I think that's probably fair. Maybe if someone drops like an Anthony Rizzo or a Volpe, you swoop and try to. I don't even. Volpe
isn't hitting anything right now. I don't even know if I
know, but at least he's got like the power speed combination that makes him interesting against the bad pitching.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's a good point. Obviously Rizzo. Yeah, I don't know who would drop Rizzo, but if
Rizzo's been awful recently.
Oh, has he?
Okay. It's been really, really bad luck. Like he's just got like about it.
The thing is, though, even if a guy's cold, if they're facing horrendous pitching in a week, play them. Like this is where they probably reverse that and get hot.
I completely agree. All right, and then we've got the San Diego Padres, who've got 6 games at Pittsburgh and then at Cincinnati, which is always a great place to hit.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So San Diego, 4 games versus righties, 2 versus lefties. They're going to get Rich Hill. They're going to get Luis Ortiz. They're going to get Luke Weaver, and they're going to get Brandon Williamson. And then Ben Lively is mediocre. The best pitcher they're going to see on the slate is Mitch Keller, and that's it. So, it's just a pretty solid week. The problem is, 4 righties, 2 lefties. And given that most of their core is going to be owned, Soto, Bogarts, Tatis, Odor only plays versus righties, and 4 isn't enough. Gary Sanchez is probably owned in most places right now, and he's been real cold lately. I think you could probably play a guy like Ha-Seong Kim, even though he's specifically much better against lefties than he is against righties. I think he's good enough that with given how bad these pitchers are, I think he's a decent start there. And like you said, they get 3 games in Cincinnati, so that's nice.
There you go. And then the last the last green matchup is the Seattle Mariners, a team that's been struggling, but you get Washington and then Tampa Bay. Glasnow's not a good one, but Yonny Chirinos is a nice guy to pick on.
Yeah, so Yonny Chirinos plus Trevor Williams, Jake Irvin, and Patrick Corbin. And honestly, Taj Bradley, he's a talented guy, but people are hitting him. So it's Glasnow is really the only guy on the slate that I want to avoid if possible. So and they get 5 righties. So anybody who can hit righties pretty well. Obviously Teoscar and Julio are going to be owned. Kelenick's probably owned most places, but if he's not, this would be a good time to use him. Under the radar guys, I don't know. Ty France isn't under the radar, but he's a guy who I've seen dropped in some 12s this year. So this would be a good Ty France week. And then for deeper pickups, JP Crawford. He actually is the best hitter on the team versus righties this year with a 134 WRC plus. The problem is he doesn't really have a lot of power or speed. But if you're looking for, just a bunch of hits and runs, this would be a good play for him this week. It's a little bit of a sneaky under the radar play.
Batting average is a hard thing to stream, so that's not a bad guy. So, someone in the comments saying Francisco Alvarez got hit in the hand, foul ball, X-rays are negative, clearly not playing, so keep an eye on that situation. So,
okay, thank you.
Good to know. Thank you for pointing that out. All right, then let's move on into some of our orange matchups. We've got Boston, who has a tougher schedule with Miami and a lot of their good pitchers, and then Toronto with at least one of their good pitchers.
Yeah, Boston gets Gausman, they get Garrett. Braxton Garrett's been one of the best pitchers in baseball the last month. Luzardo, who when he's on, he's real tough to hit. And then as we mentioned before, Alcantara, great skills-wise, but not doing well so far this year. So not really in a void, but you're not looking to attack him necessarily either. And then you got Kikuchi, and then I think assuming Toronto sticks with this Richards-Bowden mismatch or mashup that they've been doing with the two of them, that would be the other matchup there. So overall, Boston just getting a bunch of pretty good pitchers to face. I would still, start your studs. Obviously Devers and Yoshida, Verdugo. I know I'm missing someone. Oh, Justin Turner. But pretty much anybody else, any fringe Casas. Obviously, I wouldn't play. Duran, I wouldn't play because they're playing lefties, and just you're not looking to stream there.
All right. What about the Chicago Cubs, who have 6 games, 3 versus Philadelphia, 3 versus Cleveland?
Yeah, the Cubs get Nola. I have them slated to get Gavin Williams. Taiwan Walker's been pitching really well lately. Bybee and Savali are no pushovers, and then Christopher Sanchez from Philly. So it's not like the worst schedule, but it's not good either. And I feel like you're going to start. You can still start your guys like Happ and Suzuki, and obviously Nico Horner, Dansby Swanson. But and honestly, I'm probably still starting Morel there.
Mhm.
But anybody else that you would think about streaming, I wouldn't do it.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Kansas City has 6 games, 3 versus Cleveland, 3 versus the Dodgers.
Yeah, I have them to get Gavin Williams again, Logan Allen, and Shane Bieber, and then get Kershaw. And again, I have to switch around the schedule here, but I have Sheehan. But if our guy from the chat is right, then I'll have to figure out who else there is. And I have a TBD here from LAD because I don't know what they're going to do at that spot. Maybe it's Michael Grove. I don't think Julio Urias is going to be close enough to come back next week. So I'm not sure what they're going to do. I guess Grove would probably be the most likely outcome there. But yeah, so you're getting a bunch of good pitchers here, and you're still starting Sal Perez and Bobby Witt. But outside of that, I think you're probably benching everybody else or leaving them on the wire.
All right. The Miami Marlins have 6 games, 3 at Boston and then 3 at Atlanta.
Yeah, Miami gets Whitlock, who we mentioned earlier, should be owned everywhere. Another guy who should be owned everywhere is, or at least most places, is Brian Bayo has been very good. They get Charlie Morton, and then Spencer Strider is really good. Smith Shawver has been pretty good. So overall, this is just a pretty rough set of matchups for the Marlins. They do get 6 righties, so I still think that this is probably a place where you can play Jesus Sanchez because it's 6 righties, and that's something you can take advantage of here. But I don't feel as good about this week as I do the prior week for him, as the matchups are much tougher.
All right, and then the Tampa Bay Rays are at Arizona and then at Seattle, 6 total games.
Yeah, Tampa gets Zach Gallen, George Kirby, Luis Castillo, Bryce Miller. They do also get Zach Davies and Tommy Henry, which is nice, but getting 4 pretty tough matchups there. You're starting Randy, you're starting probably still starting Josh Lowe. You're obviously starting Wander Franco and Yandy Diaz. But I do think you can probably still play Luke Raley and Josh Lowe here. You're just not super excited about it based on the matchups.
Yeah. And let's talk about some red matchups. So these are the big avoids. Atlanta has got 3 games versus Minnesota and then 3 games versus Miami.
Yeah, Atlanta does get 6 righties, so that is a good thing for their righty mashers. But unfortunately, those righties are Ober, Sonny Gray, Joe Ryan, Yuri Perez, Sandy Alcantara, and then Brian Hoeing. So really no good matchups to attack here. But if you want to still play, I mean, you're still going to play Acuna, Olsen, all the studs there. I think Marcell Ozuna is a judgment call. I probably would stay away from him this week. I just don't see him having a lot of value against those hitters. But you're still starting your studs here.
Okay. And then St. Louis has coming back from England, has 3 games versus Houston and then 3 games versus the Yankees.
Yeah, St. Louis gets Framber, Christian Javier, Garrett Cole. Those are all terrible. And then the other matchups are Luis Severino. If he figures it out, then that's a bad matchup. JP France and Randy Vasquez are both decent pitchers as well. So just not really a place to attack with any matchups outside of playing your stars, Nolan Arenado and Goldschmidt, you're still starting. But I'm probably leaving Gorman on the bench if I can. Jordan Walker, I don't know. I don't know if I'd play him there or not. And like Paul DeYoung and Brendan Donovan, I think, though if I have better options, I'd prefer other guys.
And then the Nationals may have the worst schedule. They've got 6 games, 3 versus Seattle, 3 at Seattle, 3 at Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's real bad. Washington gets Luis Castillo, Logan Gilbert, Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, Brian Wu, and Ranger Suarez. That's like, sweet Christ. There's nobody really to attack on this schedule with their hitters. So, 5 righties, they're really good against lefties. Hamer Candelario is really going to be your only consideration here. I mean, if you have to play a guy like, Luis Garcia in deeper in 15s or whatever as your middle infielder, I guess you got to do it. But if you can find someone else to stream for this week, I think you'd be better off.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Let's start starting pitchers. Again, we're talking 2 weeks out. So these are guys you're going to stash potentially for the following week. Kyle Bradish going up against Minnesota.
Yeah, so he does have a 2-start this week. I forgot to put that in there. His first start's against Cincinnati. So it's not in Cincinnati, but these are both at home. I don't trust Bradish enough to play against Cincy. If you can just start him against Minnesota, I would trust him enough with that. But I think outside of 15s where you're desperate, I don't think I would play him for that Cincy matchup, even on a 2-step.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think in 15-team leagues it's going to be hard because there's so few options. But if you've got better options, Cincinnati, man, that offense is looking tougher and tougher every time they call someone up. So I can totally understand trying to skip that. Our boy Garrett Whitlock versus Miami and then versus Toronto. Are you willing to risk that one?
I am. Yes, this is where. The skills are good enough. And even though Miami is no pushover versus righties and Toronto obviously is no pushover, I think that the skills went out for Whitlock. And I just don't think you can afford to bench a 2-starter of his skill level even against 2 tough offenses.
What about Brian Bayo, who you just mentioned as a guy you think should be rostered in more leagues versus Miami?
Yeah. Even though Miami's solid versus righties, I'm playing Brian Bayo versus Miami as well.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that one. Drew Smiley, who had a little uneven start this week, but gets a start versus Cleveland next week.
Yeah, again, this is the kind of guy that Cleveland struggles with, so I think I would play him. And this is another 2-step. He gets Philly in the first half of the week, so. Philly is solid, but I'm not necessarily avoiding them. So if I have really good options, it's possible I bench him for this week. But I think that he'll be good enough to play here.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think this is a really good streaming matchup. We assume Gavin Williams is coming up any day now. Could be up this week. Hopefully he's up next week because he could potentially line up for a 2-step Kansas City and the Chicago Cubs, which is about as good of a 2-step as you can get.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. If he comes up and starts on Tuesday, he'll get Oakland followed by a 2-step against Kansas City and Chicago Cubs. Really doesn't get much better than that.
It really doesn't. I mean, then this is, again, why you should be picking him up in any league where he is available and you can make with midweek pickups. All right. Aaron Savali getting the Chicago Cubs.
Yeah, Savali, like Gavin Williams and Logan Allen lately, they're just getting all the good matchups. Oakland, Kansas City, Chicago Cubs. I'm assuming that Logan Allen is owned everywhere, so I didn't talk about him, but Aaron Savali getting the Cubs, I know he hasn't been great, but I absolutely like that matchup a lot.
Just double check on Logan Allen because I don't know if he's widely rostered in shallower leagues as you may think. So,
well, he's owned in all of my Yahoos, but it's possible that maybe someone's in some shallower leagues out there. If he is available, definitely pick him up for that Oakland start followed by the KC start the next week.
I'm double checking right now. Logan Allen is available or is only rostered in 32% of Yahoo leagues.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I mean, I'm in high stakes leagues, so maybe in your non-pay leagues or lower entry fee leagues, I guess he is more widely available than I realized.
There you go. Reed Detmers, he's kind of iffy this week, but I think he's pretty close to a must start next week, right?
Yeah. And even though the White Sox have historically matched lefties, they're just not the White Sox right now. So I like this a lot. So Reed Detmers for me is a must start against the White Sox next week.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Vasquez, a 2-start versus Oakland and St. Louis. Gotta love that.
Yeah, I picked up Randy Vasquez for $1 this week, and I'm playing him in some leagues this week, and then in other leagues I'm not because I have other options. This is assuming now they do have a day off on Monday of next week, so they could skip him if they want. I don't think they will. Just my guess. I don't know that they want to push some of these guys. Herman, Schmidt, Severino. These guys aren't really used to pitching a ton of innings in a year, so I'm assuming if Vasquez does well this week, that they'll give him that they'll keep him in the rotation until Rodon returns. So if he is still in the rotation at this point, yeah, he would get an Oakland St. Louis 2-step, which I like a lot. Oakland especially, obviously, but St. Louis I don't think is anything too anything to fear really at this point.
I mean, I keep thinking they're going to turn things around, and they just never do. So
I know.
Herman and Casey Schmidt both getting Oakland.
Yes. Domingo Herman and what was that name again?
Oh, did I say Casey Schmidt?
Yes.
Wow, it is a little bit late. That's wow. All right. My bad on that one.
That would be Clark Schmidt.
Yeah, thank you.
So, while I may pronounce names slightly wrong, you just go ahead and change the first name.
I just completely talk about the wrong player.
Yeah, so Herman and Schmidt are both very much streamable against Oakland. Nothing more needs to be said.
Yeah. Blackburn and Sears going up against the Yankees. I wouldn't touch Blackburn. I don't care if the Yankees are depleted, but Sears I definitely would go with.
Yeah, Blackburn does get a Yankees White Sox 2-step. I'll say this: if something has changed and someone can convince me that he's a different pitcher and he blows the Guardians away this week, that's the only way that I would consider him for this 2-step against the Yankees and the White Sox, because that is a really nice 2-step. They're both in Oakland too. So I'm just not a believer right now. So we'll see how he does this week. But I've learned over the years to keep an open mind, because if someone sucks one year and then you always think they suck, you're going to miss when they do sometimes evolve into different pitchers and they figure something out, whatever it is. With him, I find it very difficult to believe that that's the case, but you never know. JP Sears, however, at home against the Yankees is very nice, though. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I'm okay being wrong on Blackburn. I just I'm not messing with that one. Taijuan Walker's pitched better as of late and gets a nice little matchup versus Chicago next week.
I think he has something like a sub-1 ERA over the last 2 weeks. It's insane. Mm-hmm. And he's been good for a long time, but I just, like Nick, I don't buy it. I don't see anything in his skills that really tell me that there's anything there really. But listen, it's the Cubs. If you need someone to stream, a hot pitcher against the Cubs is good enough.
All right. And then Rangers Suarez versus Washington. Be careful.
Yeah.
Lefties versus Washington are not super easy.
Right. Yeah. So Rangers Suarez has been pretty good lately, and Washington actually has not been hitting lefties very well lately, but for the year and historically, a lot of these guys do hit lefties very well. So I think that this could be like a trap game. But if you are desperate, you can probably do worse. But just know, Lane Thomas, Stone Garrett, Joy Meneses, Keibert Ruiz, they're all pretty good against lefties. So Lane Thomas has a 200 WRC plus. He mashes lefties. So yeah, like you said, be careful, but it's something to consider.
Yeah, I think I would probably avoid that one. Our boy Oviedo versus Milwaukee.
Yep, another good matchup for Oviedo, coming off of a nice 2-step the prior week. Milwaukee not hitting shit right now. So assuming Oviedo doesn't get blown up this week, I think he's a damn good streamer the next week as well.
and finish out with Woo versus Washington.
Yeah, and Woo probably will be a must-own guy pretty soon. Versus Washington. Washington is just so bad versus righties. Candelario is really their only threat there. So, Brian Woo is a must-start there.
All right. Well, that is going to wrap us up for this episode. I want to thank Dave for putting in all this work because it does take quite a long time to gather all this information. Hopefully, everybody enjoyed it. Reach Dave on Twitter at RunDMCD.
Sorry, taking a sip of water. Add that D.
There you go. Reach me on Twitter at Justin Mason FWFB. Email me or the show, friendsoffantasybenefits@gmail.com. Follow Friends of Fantasy Benefits on Twitter at Fantasy Benefits. Give us a 5-star review. Really, really helps us out and gets you entered in to win a free RotoWire shirt at the end of the month. Make sure if you do it on Spotify that you screenshot it, send it to me either via Twitter DM or via email. And then if you do it on iTunes, I should be able to get it. No problem. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. For Dave and myself, thank you for listening. Have a fantastic baseball season.